The Cape Breton fiddle without the piano was like a bell without its tongue. So it's really part of the Cape Breton sound, and I think what makes it so recognizable and distinctive from other styles.
It's the backbone, pretty much, because it's everything. It's the bass, it's the rhythm, it just pulls the fiddlers together.
People are seeing piano players more and more as individuals that are bringing their own sound to the fiddler.
In its most important role, Cape Breton accompaniment is just that, accompaniment. But it adds a rhythmic element that maybe you don't get from the melody.
But the big thing was always taught to me and my mother, and she was a master at it, was timing. To keep good timing and be there for the fiddler. Let them lead, but you be right there.
Well, rhythm, I think, is the biggest factor that separates it from other piano styles, and the rhythm definitely mimics the step dancing rhythms, and I think all of these inherent Gaelic language rhythms and, you know, kind of what unites Gaelic music as a whole, that you can hear in the fiddling and in the piping and in the language and the step dancing, and you can definitely hear that in the piano style, and it supports the music that way and makes it very danceable, for sure.
The fiddlers, they all have a unique style of playing, and you get somebody like Larry who has a different north side style, Irish style. You get Paul Cranford, you get all these guys, and they're playing differently, and their timing might be slightly different, so it's kind of like the piano player's job, and that I learned that from, say, Gene and Dougie and different ones that they would say, you know, you got to set, if you find it's too fast, or you set the tempo, you know, get them to follow you and pull them together. So that's kind of what, for a session, for a lot of fiddlers, and it's just a great combination at a square dance or something, get a fiddler, two fiddlers and the piano. It just seems to work.
The style itself is something that really fascinates people. The way of playing, the comfort level of a good accompanist on the piano is something that must be the envy of many classically trained pianists who can read sheet music with more black ink on the page than white, and yet a piano player with a deep understanding of a large repertoire can sit down and play anything that the fiddler chooses, respond to them and work with them to create that drive.
You can't go by the books and the music, because although it gives you the chords, it's a good guide, but you really have to have a fiddler beside you playing it, and then you kind of get a better sense of, you know, you can, and everybody's different. Fiddlers play certain styles, and you kind of have to complement what they're doing and not just play the same.
I guess I think of the Cape Breton traditional melodies, and they, you know, it's this linear piece of music that allows for, you know, I just spoke of this rhythmic element in the chordal, but so in the same way, it allows for the support of a bass, of a walking bass line that we're well known for here in Cape Breton. The bass hand was allowed to develop because the music was so linear. It lent itself to having these two levels of accompaniment, some rhythm and then some bass that had the freedom to kind of do with whatever.
The traditional thinking was that the fiddle player is the piano player's boss, but really the dancers are the fiddler's boss. The fiddler has to acknowledge and respond to the lift created by the dancers, either in a square dance situation or in a situation where a solo step dancer hops up for a couple of steps. So the piano player can contribute to the lift that the step dancer feels by maybe sustaining less.
you can definitely hear it for sure in the jig rhythm, because you can really hear the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with the feet. And in the jig pattern that we have on the piano, as instead of just doing like a boom chuck, like on beat or off beat, with like a solid chord in the right hand, the kind of the basic pattern in Cape Breton is to actually get out every one of those beats in 6/8. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The left hand is doing 1, 2, and then 3, and then the right hand is doing the 2, 3, and then the 5, 6. So each one of those beats in 6/8 is coming out, and that's what happens in the step dancing.
You don't really know ahead of time what the fiddle player is going to play. That's just not something that they have to disclose. Sorry, too bad. I would say that, there are nowadays more cues, nods, I'm going to this key or whatever, but I don't think that relationship was always there. And then if the feel thing is right, that's when the fiddle player might do a nice variation on the fiddle because they were inspired to, because it felt great, it felt right. And then the piano player takes that, it's a reciprocal kind of relationship where, okay, they've offered something and it just feels so good and you're moved to do something else, whether it's rhythmically or with a bass line or whatever.
Well, in the piano accompaniment, it is certainly improvised within the construction of like the harmony to the tune. So I think we all have a sense of what the basic harmony is, and then you have a sense of typical substitutions that you might want to do. And the bass lines are definitely improvised, but you do have a vocabulary of bass lines that you work from. But in the melodies themselves, there's not a lot of improvisation that you would think of, like when you think of Irish music or American old-time music. Like, we don't play the tune 3, 4, 5 times and vary it every time a little bit. We play the tune through twice and we move on, and the melody tends to stay the same. But there are little micro variations that happen. But like I was saying before, the way that the fiddler and piano player interact can be quite spontaneous.
See, one time before the piano, they had the pump organ. You had to pump the old-fashioned pump organ, and all the country homes had them. Mom used to play them a lot, and Marie McClellan grew up playing one of those. Mary Jessie McDonald grew up playing the pump organ. And if you didn't pump, you had no sound. But that was the big thing here years ago. And if you get someone that can play one of those well, it's a beautiful blend with the violin.
Anybody off the early records really broke ground. They were they were really the pioneers of the style. And I can't even count the number of people that weren't recorded that were the pioneers of the style, that would have heard that. Certainly we can get into like Mary Jessie we were talking about, and Maybelle, and Marie and Joey and Jamoris. My point being is that who were influential. I think anybody that was recorded first was extremely influential, because that actually took the style and placed it somewhere where people could hear. Then it wasn't just something that you had to travel to somebody's house and you might have somebody that could accompany, as opposed to, not that the plunk plunk is bad, but the recordings allowed for Cape Breton piano. It was actually a documented style. Then at that point, all of a sudden, oh, this is something, what are they doing there? And you could not rewind, but you could put it back in again and re-listen and learn from that. So those people would be extreme. They started that. They started the tradition. Certainly there were other people that came before them, but I think that's the beginning point for Cape Breton accompaniment.
Lila McIsaac was a tremendous player in her style, the old style, She played practically everything, and she used to play the melody with Sandy. He was considered the master of the Inverness fiddle at 70, 80 years ago. She was one. There was Jessie Maggie McClellan. She had a degree from Mount St. Bernard. She was the organist at the Still-a-Maris Church there for over 50 years. And she used to play at picnics with Sandy McLean, accordion, There was a Mrs. McDonald. She played on the first records that Angus Chisholm, Dan J. Campbell, and Angus Allen Gillis. They went to Montreal. Bernie McIsaac, who ran the music store, and he arranged that. And they recorded about 4 or 5 recordings separately, then they played 3 or 4 together. And Mrs. McDonald, they call her Mrs. W.J., she was, she recorded for them, and that she was pretty good. My mother's time, my mother would be 101, she was living. There was Mom, there was Lila Hashem. She played for years, and my mother. They were the kind of the big, then Maureen McClellan came in later, you know, and she played a lot of years. There was John Willie Morrison. He was from the north side, and he played all of them. He used to play a lot with this Joe Confiant. He'd be an uncle to Johnny Wilmot, and he was considered probably the master fiddler on the north side. And John Willie Morrison used to play the tunes out, the Irish tunes, and he put all the embellishments. It was good, a nice style.
For me personally, Tracy Dares would be a huge influence. She always follows the tunes perfectly, and she's innovative but extremely tasteful, and she just has a lovely way of bringing out the tunes. Jim Morris Rankin, of course, would be one. Very innovative and rhythmically just always bang on, and just again the bass lines that he played just always perfectly complemented tunes.
It's grown, where it may have just been, the pump organ that was just playing very simply just to accompany and provide some kind of a back that the tune could sit on. Now we've got alternate chords, and we've got some jazz voicings, and we've got all of these syncopated rhythms, and so this evolution, as people have understood more of what the role of something that accompanies is.
And there's always been innovation in the short time that Cape Breton piano has been here. We've seen people take it in different directions, and as long as there's never sort of one conventional, this is the way you're supposed to accompany the tunes on the piano, as long as nothing gets standardized, I hope there will always be this interest in the way that accompaniment contributes to the music.
It's almost like a Heinz 57. We've borrowed from this and that, but also created, I think, in the same breath, certain aspects that are unique to Cape Breton piano accompaniment, and that would have, of course, happened through the playing of those people who learned the style first.
My mother's a piano player, a very noted one, and very much in demand in her day for the fiddlers, the old-time fiddlers. And she was, I guess, the main piano player probably in the New Waterford area, and Sydney too. She was right up there, great pianist. Her father before her was a great fiddler, Dougald McIntyre. But my mother was, she wanted to learn the piano. She was blind, she had an accident, so she wasn't able to see, to read music, but marvelous ear and a great sense of timing. All the fiddlers used to say, she'd make you play, she'd bring the best out of you, so that was quite a compliment, On Sunday afternoons, after dinner, a lot of the musicians in Waterford, Mary McDowell and Duncan, it was a gathering place. Like you have a club today, they'd gather up at our place. It was big home, and they'd be playing music all afternoon, different fiddlers taking turns, and my mother would be playing for them all. And so that went on practically every weekend, and I was exposed to all this. And mother was great, she'd let me, she knew I liked the music. She never, made any effort to teach me anything or to even know if I was interested. And I guess when I was 5 years old, at least 5, I can remember certain fiddlers coming to the house, and there was one in particular that would take my ear. I could be a little kid playing with toys or whatever. As soon as that lady would draw the bow, I'd run from my chair. She just had that magical and that's Mary McDowell. I'm very high on Mary McDowell. And I could distinguish tunes at that age. I didn't know the names of them, but they played King George IV and Miss Lyle, and that's the names of them. Oh, geez, that would just chill, that would just go right through me. One day I thought I was alone in the house. Mother was cleaning her closet out in the bedroom there. And I got very brave. I said, I'm going to try this thing, first time. And I was trying to pick a jig out, and I probably had the first turn. I remember Mother saying she almost fell head first into the closet. She was so shocked, She was so pleased. So she came out and she showed me a basic left hand to go with that and try to coordinate the two, it was hard. By the end of the week, I had 3 jigs. There were jigs. At the end of the week, I had my little set, 1, 2, 3. I could play them together, you see. I played a lot for Duncan McQuarrie of the house here. Of course, my mother was the main piano player. But I used to go over to Johnny Wilmot. Johnny Wilmot was a great fiddler, Irish and Scottish, and he lived in Bridgeport. So on Fridays, sometimes I'd take the bus in the evening after school and go over there, and they'd drive me home on Sunday. And probably Johnny was one that liked to travel. I'm going to be in Big Pond tonight at the house. It was all house parties, house sessions, music. So I got a lot of grueling sessions with Johnny over the years, And so I got so used to Irish music, and you learn a lot. There's a lot of chord changes and things. Of course, I didn't know all those things at that time, but as you go on, you keep learning. So then I said to Johnny, I'd like to learn to read music. I guess I was about 15. So we went into McKnight's at that time in Glace Bay. They had a store, and he got me a book, and I still have it, called Grown Up Beginners book. He wrote the scale for me, and then he bought me the 1,000 Fiddle Tune book, which is 1,000 good tunes, And so he said, now pick a tune that say Maggie Brand's Jig, will say, everybody knows that. So I'd open the book and I'd follow along, and I'd see where I was going wrong, but I'd follow. I got onto that very quickly. And I did that I finished that book, and, I could read pretty good. And then when I took theory for a couple of years, university theory, I guess it was. I didn't know it at the time. And, over the years to Boston and trying to be always picking up things, studying a little bit. So I'm more basically self-taught, but my ear is the big thing. I read the note, but it's what's going into it for me. That's the secret. That's the music, where the music comes from. So. I probably have backed up on 60 different albums at least. But don't forget, 5 was with Carl, and 5 was with John Campbell. So that's 10 right there. But the rest were, all kinds of Teresa Morrison, Donald McClellan, Johnny McDowell, Johnny Wilmot, I could go on and on. All the players, but I never made anything with Winston wanted to record with me. And he kept putting it off. And every time I'd meet him, he says, we're going to do that. Now, don't forget. And I said, whenever you're ready. Next thing you know, he got sick. And that was the end of that. And that's one thing that I regret, that I missed out on that. I would love to have done a recording with Winston. It would have been a great honor. I did 5 of my own, yeah. And they were all recorded in this house on this piano. Yeah. First album I did a piano only. Nothing else, just me. Second time, I had Dave McIsaac on electric bass, I guess it was, he was playing. I had him on, then I had Blanche Sophocleous another time. She did guitar work for me. Then I had Blaine Akins for 2 or 3. He even produced the thing here. He did the whole thing. In fact, they were wonderful and everything. I was just as happy. I think if I do another one, I'm just going to do piano. Just me. It's the rhythm, mainly. The beat, the rhythm for the jig, and the reel, and the Strasberg, of course.
You know, the questions I get at workshops for the fiddle are probably a lot of the same questions that Doug would get at a piano workshop. What is it that makes Cape Breton music sound the way it does? And I like to think that, yes, repertoire and tempo are two things that define Cape Breton, but it's almost just as much about the spaces between the notes.
But I had never composed anything till about, I think it was 1999. I was at David Greenberg's. And he said, make a tune. I said, I couldn't make a tune. I said, I hit 2 notes on the piano. It reminds me of something else. But he said, you're not going far enough. So, and he joked, you know, and he says, and tie that left hand behind your back with the frills and the, you know, just work. I was there and he gave me the note paper. This was at his house in Mississauga. So I got working in about less than an hour. I had this tune made in the TFF. So I called it David Greenberg's Inspiration. And it came out pretty good, you know. So then I came home the next day and then I was thinking, Kate, his wife, she plays. I probably should make something for her. So I made a reel. And I asked her, what did she want me to call it? She said, call it Kate Donnelly's piano lesson. I guess I was showing her a few things. But anyway, I made the tune so damn hard I could hardly play it myself. But I didn't know, you know. But David will play it, yeah. Oh, I could play it. It had to work. Oh, it's just difficult. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know it was so difficult while I was making it, you know.
I don't know what the music scene would be if he wasn't around. If he hadn't been there he's been playing since he was, 14, 15 years old with the icons of the legends, as they say, of fiddle. You know, Winston Fitzgerald, Angus Chisholm, Buddy McMaster, everybody from that era. He's the connection between the golden era of like fiddle music in the 50s and 60s, or before that, the 40s, everybody. And then international musicians as well. But I think Dougie's the connection between, and for the younger fiddlers and the younger musicians coming up, he's the one that you look to and say, well, look at that, that's the guy.
Well, Dougie is, of course, he's always prepared for rehearsal. He really wants to know the tunes that you're playing. When I came to him with these 2 sets for fun for the whole family, it seemed to me that he already was more than familiar with the selections of tunes, and that it was just a matter of sitting down and trying them in their entirety. He's a real pro. When he came into the studio, it was 2 takes of each, and he was happy with both of them. So it was up to me to decide which ones we felt best about. And Dougie's contribution was that rhythmic lift that played with at a little slower tempo than I might have been recording for the rest of the CD, allowed me to really be more expressive with those tunes. And Dougie's more hoppy, percussive style.
He just knows how to complement the tunes perfectly. It always brings out the tunes in the way that they need to be brought out. And of course, as a solo performer. You know, he's really made Cape Breton piano, you know, not just a style of accompaniment, but an actual style on its own. He's made solo piano playing an art form here, and something that Cape Breton piano playing is known for.
He was just so versatile. He was like he was the fiddler that was a piano player. You know, he approached the piano, accompaniment, that was something he was incredibly talented at and could do that. Like that was almost too easy for him. Then he took the melodies that were meant for a fiddle, never meant to be on a piano, and were never written for a piano, I guess I should say. And he translated that into a language, a new dialect of the language, I guess. You know, he was able to take what was meant to be done like this and put it here on this kind of a platform.
He's probably done for the piano, the solo stuff, what Winston Fitzgerald did for the fiddle, and Angus Chisholm. You hear all these great names, you know, back and then. But it's given some of the other piano players say, well, you know, I can do that. And then you've got Mac Moran and Jason, and these guys are doing starting that. You know, they're playing melodies and they're recording their own CDs and this kind of thing. So they probably look to him and say, well, you know, he can do it.
If you're looking to really complement tunes well, you're going to look to him, for sure. And you can hear the bass lines that he plays in other piano players in their styles, because they make so much sense. You know, we have a piano summit at events like Celtic Colours, and you know, we have great solo pianists. Tracy's an amazing solo piano player, Mac Moran, Troy McGilvery, and it's something that a lot of the piano players aspire to be great solo piano players as well. And I wonder if there would be so much solo piano playing if he didn't record the albums that he had, and if he wasn't known as being, you know, this solo piano player.
So say you're learning a piece on the piano and you're sitting there and you're playing through it. And I hear this from fiddlers all the time as well. And they're like, you know, you're sitting and you're going through, it's not a very good tune, and you move on. But then you'd hear Doug MacPhee play all the ones you thought were crap. And they were all, like he just was able to give them the life that they needed to be that tune. So of course you'd be running back saying, I thought that was a crappy tune, and it's great because he was able to lend that spark and that life.
And Dougie's very confident in the flat keys, which is something that I notice as a trend maybe going the other way. Flat keys nowadays, while still slightly more popular in Cape Breton than in, say, the Irish traditional music circles, the flat keys are dying out a little bit. And Dougie was a big part of bringing flat tunes to the forefront, like in the repertoire of fiddlers during the 60s and 70s.
If there's fiddlers and they're playing tunes and they may, you know, have a lapse or something, or forget what another tune to go into, Dougie's right there. He'll just pick 2 or 3 bars out, and the fiddlers will pick that up and they'll go. So it's great that way too, to keep a session going. I would say there aren't too many tunes, and everybody, you know, the fiddlers that are recording, they're calling him, looking for tunes, and they want, where can I get this tune, or what is this tune, who wrote it, and especially if they need to get permission to record the tune, Dougie usually knows, okay, it's this person, you have to talk to this one or that one. So, yeah, but I mean, that's his whole life. His whole life has been immersed in Celtic music and playing, and he's been all over the place playing, so he learned a lot, and he's sharing it a lot too with everybody that wants, you know, a bit of his time. He'll share it with them, so that's a great thing.
I never had the desire to play the violin, although people would think I would. I didn't. I liked my instrument. And what I liked, well, I'll get back to that later, but I said, I want to be able to play solo, and I want to be able to put all the incidentals, all the things that they're doing, putting in on, and so that was my, you know, okay. So, and I play a lot of melody out. When I'm playing melody, my influences are 95% fiddlers, piano players, fiddlers. I hear a fiddler playing a certain tune, it'll grab me, whatever they're doing to that tune. I can hear somebody else play it, I like it, but no. Certain fiddlers will play a tune a certain way, and I want that, and I want to accent it that way, you know.
Okay, I'm gonna quit.